So that's awesome. As Priscilla told you, I'm Mary Ann Clyde. I'm the chair of the board of directors for the Fauquier Chamber. And we have been without a full-time executive director for a year now. And at least it's a year and 2 weeks, right, Alec? So,
yes.
So I just want to tell you how excited I am that Alec is here, because what he's done, since he has a great history with hospitality and management, and he's hopped right into it is a lot to jump right into the middle of something that's been kind of we've been sort of floating for about a year until we could find a full-time executive director, and he jumped right in. He is taking control, taking charge, really getting involved. He's been walking the streets. I mean, that you can explain that yourself, Alec. But he's been walking the streets of Warrenton and getting out and visiting businesses and meeting all the board members and meeting as many business people and members that we have, and just doing a really wonderful job. And the first week of September, we had a luncheon to introduce him at Fauquier Springs. And he's just jumped right in with Laura, and Laura is a really good support to him, because she like knows where all the bodies are buried at the chamber offices and stuff. And so she's able to guide him where he might be feeling like he's floundering. If there's any time that he feels like he's floundering, it doesn't show. I do know it's like drinking out of a fire hose, but Alec, I just wanted to say welcome, and I wanted to introduce you formally. Everybody who has not had a chance to do a one-on-one or give Alec a phone call or whatever, I really encourage you to do that. So officially welcome you to the Women's Business Council.
Well, thank you very much, Mary. I really appreciate it. As she said, I sometimes I guess I flounder, but I try not to obviously express it. And, I look at it as adversity and a challenge, and I can quickly turn it into an opportunity. I really enjoyed here. It helps living, basically 4 minutes from the office. So I can get spend a lot of time here and get things up and going, get the foundation the way that I like it. But eventually, I think that, myself and Laura as well, and our resources are better served outside of this office. I'm not a hard person to find. I'm around. I grew up in Fauquier County. I can't go down one end of Main Street to the other without running into somebody I know and engaging with them. This world is built and revolves around relationships, whether it's social or business, and I'm a huge advocate of that. I truly enjoy one-on-one introductions and meetings and conversations about it. I'm going to compliment Mary Ann's statement. Please, don't hesitate to reach out. You're never bothering me. Even if you are, I won't let you know that. I'm here at your service. The Chamber is a wonderful organization. I'm proud to be the first leader for the next 100 years. And really looking forward to continuing on what's been a great 3 weeks. Looking forward to just day by day and bringing you as the business community of Fauquier County as much value as we can to help you succeed and prosper.
Well, thank you for coming and joining us, Alec. Then I also wanted to mention that you have already met the Queen. This is the founder of the Women's Business Council in Fauquier County. There was a great committee that she had gathered around her to form 10 years ago, 11, 10. 11, okay. But this young woman has more energy than anybody I know. And she also knows everybody in town, and she is a strong businesswoman and engaging and friendly and compassionate. And she really loves her Women Business Council. And so I'm going to give a big drum roll. Can you hear that? Anyway, and here is the fabulous Priscilla Huddle.
Yay.
Mary Ann. Thank you, Mary Ann, as always. And she's exactly right. There was an amazing group of women. We're having an echo, Michelle. There's an amazing group of women that helped launch this, many of which are on this call and on our executive committee for life. Unfortunately, one I'm very sad to say is missing today, Jan Sutton, and prayers go out to Jan and her family. Many of you know she's recently lost her husband of 39 years. So she's going through a very tough time today, and I know she would appreciate all of our love and support in your cards. She's a very integral part of the Chamber of Commerce and started Lead Share Group. So she helped us form this council 11 years ago. Gloria, gosh, who else is on the call right now that was on that original? Marianne came in soon after. Well, as soon as we could get her on there, for sure. But I just want to welcome everyone today. And we have people from all over the state of Virginia, Texas, Florida. I just want to say thank you so much for joining us. I'd also like to recognize the executive committee of the Women's Business Council. And that's Liz Johnson, our co-chair, Gloria Williams, chairman of sponsorship, Virginia Ward, our secretary. Dr. Ethel has gone somewhere, but she'll pop back up. Caitlin Adkins, Jan Sutton, Dawn Watton, Sarah Yackel. I see Lucy from Sarah's office here. Thank you for joining us, Lucy. She's also the treasurer of the Chamber of Commerce. Mary Ann Clyde, the chairman. Elizabeth Rose. Did her baby come? Because I knew we had not yet. We're like really close to baby on the way for Elizabeth Rose. She's vice chair of councils for the chamber. Last but not least, Michelle Coe, Blue Sky Phoenix, who is our facilitator for the event today, a new executive committee member of the Women's Business Council, and again, the wizard behind the curtain. I'd also like to thank any of the Fauquier Chamber board members here today that have joined us, but a big shout out again to Michelle Coe, who is also chairman-elect of the chamber. So she will be following Mary Ann in this path of leadership. So we can't thank you enough for all your giving back. And of course, a huge thanks to the chamber team for all their hard work with the Women's Business Council in making our event happen today. The council was actually formed 11 years ago by a group of women dedicated to the purpose of the Women's Business Council with three main goals. One, to accelerate the advancement of women in business, be they entrepreneurs, women business owners, or leaders in corporations. Two, to identify and overcome barriers that block women from moving forward through targeted education and programs. And three, to increase the executive networking proficiency and effectiveness by creating opportunities for women to put networking into action. And of course, we all know nobody does it better than Amelia. We are not just about women, we are about everyone. And we welcome participation from everyone. Again, thank you for joining us. I now would like to introduce Gloria Williams, firm administrator of the law firm of Mark Williams and Associates, and our sponsorship committee chair, who has the great honor of recognizing all of our sponsors. Gloria.
Thank you to all of our sponsors. Many of you are on this call now, and it's without these businesses, we wouldn't be able to bring you these programs. So we're very appreciative and ask that if you happen to cross paths with any of these folks that you mention, that you know they sponsor us and you appreciate it. Alan Wayne Design Studio, Appleton Campbell, Ashwell and Ashwell, Atlantic Union Bank, Be the Change Foundation, Blazer Physical Therapy, Carmen Rivera State Farm Insurance, Country Chevrolet, Discovery Publications, Fauquier Health, Fauquier Times, Genesis Home Improvement, Golden Rule Builders, Gulick, Carson and Thorpe, Home Sweet Home Improvements, Hoddle and Associates, Inside Nova, Jewel Technical Consulting, Lisa Burnside with Truist Bank, Marianne Clyde with Business Your Way, Mark B. Williams and Associates, Marshall Consulting Group, lost my place there, Meridian Financial Partners, Michelle Coe with Blue Sky Phoenix, Mountain View Marketing, Nancy D. Green, Esquire, Novak, Piedmont Fine Properties, Sherry Goodwin with Jager 2, Smith Midland, Spaces Organized and Styled, Tuesday Lead Share,
That sounds good.
Updegrove, McDaniel, McMullen, and Chiquetto, UVA Community Credit Union, and Warrenton Auto. Thank you very much. We really appreciate it.
Now I'd like to introduce our speaker for today. We're delighted all of you could join us. Our speaker today is Melissa Laughon, partner, courage builder, strategist, and professor. Melissa helps leaders cut through the confusion of what to do next and provides them with consistency, clarity, and results-driven deliverables. She guides leaders and teams to define and design their successes. Prosperity and sustainability come from trust. Melissa inspires change and helps build that critical trust. Today, Melissa will share the cues in our personal and professional lives that answer the question, where is momentum waning and waxing for you? And she'll share actionable strategies for us to effectively leverage momentum. It's my great pleasure to introduce Melissa Laughon.
Hey, everybody. I'm so excited to be with you today. As I mentioned, I think anytime we build community, good things happen. I think it's extremely healthy. And so many of you are in healthcare, so you understand how important that is. We don't have a lot of time, and I have so much I want to share with you that I'm going to just dive right in, but I do have a little bit of a disclaimer. When Priscilla reached out to me, I think it was in March of this year, and I feel like my thoughts about what to share with you have changed every week. Like, that's how much change we're all going through and experiencing, and perspectives are changing. So I'm recognizing that when some of you hear the word momentum, you're like, yes, I see an opportunity. I want to leverage that. I'm transforming my business right now. There's this niche, I can tackle it. Others of you are like, I don't want anything else coming my way. Stop the momentum. And so there's a whole range of emotions around of our lives and our work and our focus and our energy. And so I just want to recognize that I'm aware of those different perspectives, and I've tried to put some things in here for you. And if you're like me, you know, you're ready to build momentum in some areas and ready to push pause and slow things down in others. So I've tried to build in a good mix. Before I started my business, which I've had it for 21 years with my husband, and our clients are national and international. So I was accustomed to some virtual work, but nothing like now. I was a marketing major. In my first few years out of college, I worked in marketing. And so by nature, I'm a really curious person. And I think what I will share with you is that in times like what we're going through, I think my researcher part, my curiosity part of me kicks in and just becomes an observer. And I listen really intently to, in our business, we do staff assessment. So, regularly we'll go in and we'll do one-on-one in-person interviews with people about their workplace culture, their leadership development, what their needs are of their leaders. And oftentimes, many of our clients are retainer, which means we work with them for more than a year. Our average client stays on board with us for 3 or 4 years. And I mentioned that because what I'm able to do is watch what's changing over time. And it's interesting when I'm looking at it and I'm thinking about all these things, I'm seeing a couple of different things that I want to talk to you about. And one of them is people are in pain. And it's been really difficult over the past, it was difficult pre-pandemic. So a lot of this, the seeds for change were kind of already planted with demographic changes, et cetera. But it feels that the pandemic has been a catalyst for the change to happen faster. And so absorbing a lot of that pain, especially from not just the employees, but the CEOs themselves, when they get to a place that they're really vulnerable, when you're really talking to the person behind the title. So there's a lot there that I want to share with you. And then the other thing I want to share is one of the reasons I don't really like to speak, even though it's part of my job, is I'm a work in progress. So if it comes off as though I have all this figured out, please know it just looks that way. I am constantly evolving and changing and trying on new things in different ways and different approaches to my business and my life. So with that, I'm going to share my screen. We're going to go through some slides just because I wanted you to be able to kind of follow along. And then towards the end, and then during the slides, there are prompts of which you need to do some personal reflection. And it would be helpful if you have something handy to jot down a note or two. And then towards the end, we're going to put you into breakout sessions. So this is actually an interactive session today. And what you're going to do is you're going to share kind of the culmination of that reflection. And you're not only going to share your perspective about what I've talked about, but I want to try to save some time that you can also give each other some tips and tricks of how to navigate some of these things, because I believe it is this whole group where the value is. It's not in me, right? I'm just the setup, and then the real value is going to come in your peer-to-peer conversations. And those are going to be small groups. So have something on hand to jot down some things. I'm going to share my screen now. Let's see if you guys can. Let's see. Okay. Move the toolbar or two here. Can you all see? Hang on. Getting all set up. Can you guys see the slide, a full screen of the slide that says the power of driving momentum? All right, we're good then.
Yes.
So one of the questions that is being asked is what is needed of leaders right now and for the future? And I think we have to be open to this kind of idea of the power of and. We need to know and understand the basics of leadership, and we need to be open to changing our approach and how we might need to do things. And if I had a red marker right now, I would slash the needed word across this slide, and I might say demanded. Workers and employees actually have the power. I don't know, how many of you have open positions that you cannot fill right now? Anybody? Okay. How many of you have people who are really challenging your return to work policies? Anybody? Nobody. Okay, that's the first time I've ever had no one raise their hand on that. So what we're seeing is that employees in the workforce are demanding things. I'll give you an example. Priscilla's in insurance. I happen to know someone in insurance, and I know that they have some open positions. They also have 12 resume perfect, interview perfect candidates that want to be put in another bin for, if you go back to just virtual only, I would like to work with you, but I don't want to work in a hybrid environment. So on paper and in the interview, great talent, experience, but they're putting a demand in place of what their expectation is, and maybe they'll be successful, maybe they won't. I heard someone at the Federal Reserve here in Richmond say, we're all part of the experiment. We're going to find out real soon here. Are the folks who are in person more productive? Are the folks who are hybrid more productive and build a better culture? Or are the folks who, we don't know. And so we're all figuring it out, and we're going to get data and we're going to see. But right now, if any of us says we know the answer, I don't know that we really do. So we're needed, required, you get the idea. So there's a lot of kind of things that I was, laughing about that we talk about in leadership development. Okay, so to drive lasting change, what do leaders need to do? Leaders need to create a culture that fully capitalizes on leverages the ideas and talents of the team. Well, how do you fully leverage the ideas and talents of the team? Well, you've got to be able to listen. And I read a Harvard Business Review article that said facilitation skills are the most needed skills in leaders for the future. And so do you feel like you're a good facilitator? Is that a strength of yours? Does someone on your team have that strength? Why is that important? We'll discuss that. And that we need to have courageous discussions if we're really going to tease out ideas and innovation. And then we actually need to help people prioritize. And if I told you that the number one request that we're hearing from these employee assessments we're doing is, we can't do it all. And I am not getting clear priorities from leadership. So takeaway number one, if you haven't had the discussion with, if you do have employees, ask them, what do you feel are your top 3 priorities? And listen to what they think it is. Is that what you think it is? And have a conversation to get to a point where you're on the same page, because most often when we do this exercise with groups, they're not on the same page. And so what that means is there's a lot of energy and resources being misapplied. Okay, so to listen and facilitate and prioritize, what do we need to do as leaders? Be open. That's really hard. We need to lead with questions versus telling. That's really hard. And we need to be objective. Our teams know when we try to manipulate the conversation towards a predetermined outcome, and they resent it. They actively resent, they feel manipulated. So that's not helping. If you think you can just get everyone together and kind of make them feel like it's their idea, not exactly the right way. But we do need everyone to engage. We need to help make hard decisions. And this is the part that people forget about listening and prioritizing and facilitating, is we have to create a safe environment. And without that safety, people don't feel heard. They don't feel like their opinion matters, and they don't feel comfortable failing. And so they won't let something go if they really don't believe it. So what do you have to do to create a safe environment? Well, you have to build trust. Anybody familiar with Patrick Lencioni's work around the 5 behaviors of a cohesive team, or his work around the advantage? Okay, I will, when you guys are in breakouts, I'll put some links into the chat. I highly recommend his work. If I had written a book, it would have been The Advantage, and it's for executive level folks to think about culture and organizational health as a discipline, the same way we think about accounting and marketing and IT, but we don't have words to describe this. And too often it gets lumped into something called soft skills. And I always joke and say, if it's so soft, why is it so darn hard? So to build trust, leaders need to be authentic and show vulnerability. And that's the essence of his behaviors of a cohesive team, is vulnerability-based trust. It means we have to be comfortable saying we don't know, we've made a mistake, we're sorry, we need to be empathetic, and we need to be okay in the uncomfortable. And I think that's really hard. And, it's not just hard once in a while, it's hard every day. It's a constant process. So to be okay in the uncomfortable, we have to accept that we're in a period of massive disruption. And when I talk about this, I want you to think about in almost every aspect of our lives. So I adore your community. I think Warrenton is probably one of the prettiest places. And I have this, I'll talk about dreams in a little bit, but somehow I think everything's better if you live somewhere that's that beautiful. Like, it's just so amazing. And I say that from looking out my window over the James River. I live in Rockets Landing in Richmond, if anybody's familiar with that area. But you all have, there's something about the foothills and just the area that makes you put things into perspective, I feel like. But if you think about what's changing, the way, and maybe it's not all changing for you, and that's okay for you to be like, I'm not really feeling this much change, but I assure you, your customers are experiencing it. Your employees are experiencing, your vendors are experiencing, and maybe, so there's lots going on. I talked to someone the other day whose husband was changing jobs. Her work was having a return to work policy. Her kid's school was canceled because there was a COVID breakout in her classroom, and one of her kids, not the other. I mean, it was just like, I just kept asking, and I'm not a therapist, but I said, is there more? Is there more? And it just kept piling on. And I was like, wow, like I can't even process all of this. And so people need us to be empathetic. And, I think we try, to be empathetic is literally the ability to put ourselves, in someone else's perspective and to hold space for their emotions. And I'm going to show you a quick video because, I don't know that, I think we think we're being empathetic, and really maybe what we're being is sympathetic. And so I want to do a clarification of terms here. And I want, as you watch this quick video, to think about how comfortable are you when another person you're engaging with is sharing that they're stressed, or that they're experiencing debilitating grief or joy or trauma or change or burnout. So all of these things. Let's take a look at this video, and then we'll see where we go next. Let's see if I can get this to play. Can you guys see that? Okay. Now you have to tell me when it starts if we can hear it. Can you hear it?
So what is empathy, and why is it very different than sympathy? Empathy fuels connection. Sympathy drives disconnection. Empathy, it's very interesting. Teresa Wiseman is a nursing scholar who studied professions, very diverse professions where empathy is relevant, and came up with 4 qualities of empathy. Perspective taking, the ability to take the perspective of another person or recognize their perspective as their truth. Staying out of judgment, not easy when you enjoy it as much as most of us do. Recognizing emotion in other people and then communicating that. Empathy is feeling with people. And to me, I always think of empathy as this kind of sacred space when someone's kind of in a deep hole and they shout out from the bottom and they say, I'm stuck, it's dark, I'm overwhelmed. And then we look and we say, hey, climb down. I know what it's like down here, and you're not alone. Sympathy is, ooh, it's bad, no, you want a sandwich? Empathy is a choice, and it's a vulnerable choice, because in order to connect with you, I have to connect with something in myself that knows that feeling. Rarely, if ever, does an empathic response begin with at least. Yeah. And we do it all the time, because you know what? Someone just shared something with us that's incredibly painful, and we're trying to silver lining it. I don't think that's a verb, but I'm using it as one. We're trying to put the silver lining around it. So I had a miscarriage. Oh, at least you know you can get pregnant. I think my marriage is falling apart. At least you have a marriage. John's getting kicked out of school. At least Sarah is an A student. But one of the things we do sometimes in the face of very difficult conversations is we try to make things better. If I share something with you that's very difficult, I'd rather you say, I don't even know what to say right now, I'm just so glad you told me. Because the truth is, rarely can a response make something better. What makes something better is connection.
Okay, so I'm going to pull the PowerPoint back up. Can you guys see that now? The PowerPoint again? Awesome. Okay. So in this space of vulnerability, with the idea of momentum, one of the reasons we don't master this or get better at it is to be empathetic, to hold space, to crawl into that hole with someone requires us to push pause. It requires us sometimes to push stop. And we're too busy. And there's this idea when we do these employee assessments and we hear things like really big things, and we say, have you talked to your manager about this? They say, they're just so busy, I don't want to burden them. The minute we become the too busy leader, we're not getting the intel that we need to run our businesses as smart as we need to do it. And so those of you in healthcare know about silence in nursing and in healthcare. If it happens in our hospitals, I assure you it happens in our small businesses. When it happens, when someone's, life or death situation, it happens to us. And you can research the silence in the workplace and you'll come up with all of these examples. But really, to hold space for another person, it means we have to be human. And the idea of leadership and humanity don't always, we haven't seen that modeled in the best of ways. And so that's where we have to strive. And I think as we get to this idea that we can be more human, it allows us or requires us to rethink a whole lot of stuff. And so that's the opportunity, is we're a work in progress. What if there's a better way? And so today I want to talk about how we rethink and maybe redefine momentum and a little bit more about being human. So we know that momentum is defined by, mass and motion. And so there's some great videos online if you're really interested in the science part of it. But this idea that if you take this tennis ball and you stack it on top of this water balloon and you drop it, what happens? The tennis ball shoots up, right? The energy from the water balloon is transferred into the tennis ball. The problem is that sometimes we don't know if we're the tennis ball or if we're the water balloon. Like, we really don't. We're leaving it to chance. We're not really sure. And it can be in any part of any day. So what we're told momentum is, particularly as women, is, and I don't want to say just as women, I think men are under as much pressure. It's a little bit different. I hope they had places to talk about these things the way that we've created and carved out places, because it's so healthy. But anyway, so the way business defines momentum are all these aspects: achievement, growth, profit, sales, innovation, strategy, motivation, team. And hold on, going the wrong way here. But like I said, some days that feels like a rocket ship. Some days momentum feels like wind in your sails and everything's great. Some days you're like, wait a minute, didn't we just go in that direction? And now we're going this direction, and other days steamroll. So I want you to take a moment and I want you to think, and I don't really care for the sake of today if you think about personal or professional, because I believe we bring our whole selves to places and to work. So I encourage you to think whatever is top of mind, write it down, because it's telling you something. It's asking to be heard. So what energizes you? What drains you? What reinvigorates or rejuvenates you when your well is empty? And what is one thing you have learned about yourself and your energy since the pandemic began? Take a minute to think about those things. So what energizes you, what drains you, what reinvigorates you, and what's one thing you've learned? I'm going to keep moving along. You can keep processing. Other questions that I just want you to not write these down, but I just want them to be playing in the back of your mind as we go through this presentation, is intentionality. What is it that I need to be intentional about in terms of driving momentum in my work life? When do I need to be intentional about letting others drive the momentum, letting go, not micromanaging, trusting, When do I need to be intentional about letting momentum stall? Like maybe it's okay for us to end this, for us to stop doing this. And then what do I need to be intentional about stopping momentum? Time out. This isn't going right. Let's fail fast forward, try again. And then would your answers align with your team's answers? So just kind of be thinking about all those things as we go along. So at the start of the pandemic, you may remember that everyone was sharing sourdough recipes. You guys remember that? Like making sourdough bread, and we're going to have all this time on their hands, and we're going to do yoga, and we're going to become so mindful, and that this was going to be fantastic. And I was like a little bit intimidated. Like, I run my own business. When are we going to be doing that kind of thing? Like, I'm worried about survival. And so I read this great article that gave me some space. And it said, you have one job in a pandemic, one job. It is to survive the pandemic. Like, safety first, survive the pandemic. And all this other stuff is just, if you want to do it, great, but that's not what we're at. So I really kind of like, my anxiety went down when I was like, okay. But soon, right, it didn't take long for our natural world to just creep back in, and it's all the responsibilities and the multitasking. And I recently read that women particularly have a few dreams in common, and I never had read this, so it normalized things for me. I was like, oh my gosh, other people have this dream too. So the idea was, if you have a busy family and a busy work life, maybe you actually dream of just giving everything up, going to your favorite spot in the world and working at a breakfast diner where the only decision people around you have to make is scrambled or fried eggs. Like, just streamline everything, make it simple. I'm like, I don't have that dream, but I know of some other women who have shared their dreams with me. So while this is our life, how many of you travel for work? Anybody travel for work? Okay. I would tell my friends, this is pre-pandemic, I would tell my friends, I was on the road again, traveling, and they would go, oh, that must be so great. And I'm like, what? You're like, your husband's not with you, your kids aren't with you, you're just all alone. I'm like, you're fantasizing. Tell me more about this fantasy. And it always went something like this: suds in a bathtub in a quiet hotel room. I'm like, that is not work travel, but go ahead with your fantasy if it makes you feel better. Back to normal. My dream, my escapism fantasy is this. Like, I have this recurring thought of, when everything gets stressful, I'm just going to go be a bartender somewhere on a tropical island. That seems perfect. But does anybody else have some form of this escapism dream when things get really, really crazy? Okay, Stephanie, what's yours?
That very same scene. In fact, somebody has a spot available at in St. Thomas for a whole week, and I'm like, let me check the flights.
Yes, I'm with you. So what gives? What's the difference here? Why is it that we can go from some of us feeling like this when others of us feel like this? And Instagram and Facebook aren't helping, right? Because what does it show? It shows this part. It doesn't show the downside, the hard parts all the time. And so we have these images. I recently was reminded of this, tale of the tortoise and the hare. You guys remember that, right? And so they're off on their race, and the hare thinks he's doing so great, or she's doing so great, that she falls asleep, and the tortoise wins. So the idea was slow and steady wins the race. Do we even believe that anymore? Like, really? Like, this was such a notion of how to get from point A to point B. And it was all about doing it in a way that was sustainable. I don't know that we believe this anymore. And so I want us to challenge our thoughts about that. And I think we are masters of momentum. We know a thing or two about keeping things and people in motion. And what we do is important. But are we as comfortable being as we are doing? Think about that for just a second. I'm going to close my blinds because I feel okay. Are we as comfortable being as we are in doing? I remember the first time I experienced my answer to this, I was actually trying to take a yoga class, and I was like, okay, enough's enough. I cannot lay here any longer. Like, Clearly, I needed it. So where did we get this idea? If you look, I'm not saying it's all bad, but I am putting a warning sign on it. There's a lot of messaging in our lives that starts very early on, particularly for girls. Do more, be more, smile more, make more, don't ask questions. Oh, and pick up that ball, but don't forget about don't worry about those that you dropped. Don't complain. Don't be too anything, too strong, too direct, too confident, too opinionated. Don't be vulnerable. So the summation is don't be ourselves. And so we adopt a role us and a real us. And anybody in sales has heard this term, and it's helpful for protection, but it's not healthy if it becomes too much. And then we start to oversimplify our whole selves. So I'm not going to go through this in today's presentation, but Zig Ziglar has this concept, and so many others do, about the whole work and life and meaning and what it really takes. And there are all these different elements. And if any one is not, if we're not giving enough attention to it and investing in intentionality around it, then it's going to be kind of depleted, and we're kind of running on a flat tire. So the question is how can we do anything, fill in the blank, if we're running on a flat tire? How can our teams do it? So this is why I feel like the mental health and the momentum and energy level of your teams should matter to you. Because if you can help them get a handle and be in their best space, physically and mentally, then you're going to get the best out of them. And the other thing I hear a lot right now is a lot of complaining about our jobs. And I want to say, as a researcher, our jobs are never going to fulfill all of us. And I think that's what's happening. As this will gets depleted, we look more and more for where we're putting our time and want it to fulfill every part of us. And so I think we have to ask ourselves, what does success mean for us? And does it feel good to us? And also recognize that this work-life balance promise is kind of a dream. There's no such thing as having it all, right? Those of us who decided to have our own business and not go the corporate track, we made choices with intention. Someone who decides to be a teacher so that they can be at home when their kids get home from school and have the summers off, they don't have other things that some of us who picked running our own business do. Like we all make choices. And I think the question that I heard early on is, do you choose hustle or do you choose flow? And my personal choice went a little bit like flow, hustle, 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 flow, hustle, flow. Like it's been a journey. Only you can decide. And I'm not judging you. I think you should make your choices and be proud about them, and then change it if you feel that you're not comfortable, and be accepting of yourself. But mostly choose authenticity. And I showed Brene Brown earlier. She has an interesting take on authenticity. She said she started her research and she thought people were either authentic or inauthentic. And what she found is that it's not people are one or the other. It's that authenticity is a discipline, and you have to choose it every time you show up. Am I going to show up to this meeting as the authentic me? Am I going to say, I have no idea what acronyms mean, the acronyms you guys are talking means, I'm lost. Am I going to show up and say, I made a mistake? How am I going to show up authentically? It's a choice. I really like that. So I want you to take a minute and I want you to ask yourself and be thinking about this. And you don't write all the questions out. I can get these to you some way later, but are you disciplined about showing up authentically? Like, do you do a self-check and say, am I really coming at this? Am I posturing, or am I coming at this real? And the reason that matters to momentum is that anytime we're not authentic, we are using up valuable energy. It takes more energy to be inauthentic than it does to be ourselves. How comfortable are you being vulnerable with your team? What is your relationship with productivity? Are you a healthy striver or are you a perfectionist? What messages that are healthy do you send your team about authenticity, productivity, and momentum? And then what unhealthy messages? And I would encourage us to think we do them both at times. And then the new question that I think leaders need to get comfortable asking is your team okay? And are you okay? and ask it often. You know, a lot of times in leadership, people ask me to distill it all down to something quick. And I think if I had to pick one thing, it's Maya Angelou's quote. I've learned that people will forget what you said, people forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. Not long ago, my husband was interviewing new doctors, and the doctor looked at his cell phone in the visit. And that one action made my husband feel like he wasn't present. And he didn't choose that doctor. Now you could say, you know, that's crazy or not, but I think that it goes back to this idea. And maybe that's all we really need to think about when it comes to leadership. Like if we get that part wrong, does the rest even matter? So how do we cultivate perspective and ideas for everyone? And I want to share with you a few facilitation tips. The first one is be intentional about the environment and timing. It's everything. Frameworks are your friend. They give people a way to add to and build on versus starting with a blank page. If you're not familiar with Dr. Edward de Bono's work, I highly recommend it. Simplicity is key in any conversation and framework. Focusing the discussion on one thing at a time versus like trying to have a conversation in a blender. And this is my key piece of getting engagement. Give people individual think time, and then go to small group time and then large groups. So we're going to practice right now, and we're going to use a strategic planning tool called Start, Stop, Continue, because we're talking about momentum. And I want you to think about when you think about where you're at and your energy level and where you need more momentum, less momentum, to put momentum to work for you. What should you start? What should you stop? And what should you continue? Start, stop, continue. So very quickly, I'm going to give you some examples. So if we start doing things, we want them to energize or align resources. So get enough sleep, set boundaries, uphold those boundaries, ask hard questions, listen to our emotions, our rage, our excitement, our sadness. They're telling us something. They're beacons that we should listen to. We shouldn't just suppress them. And by the way, suppressing them takes way too much energy. Practice acceptance and letting go of control. We're never in control. It's just the idea of control. I love this quote. It kind of transforms the way you look at something. What can we start doing that would, so for you, this is the individual think time. What are 1 to 3 things that you need to start? And for the sake of time, let's just make sure you get one and you can add to the list. What's one thing to drive momentum that you need to start? Jot it down. Okay, we're going to go to stop. We want to stop these things because they're depleting or misaligning our resources. Judging, self-criticism, comparison, managing others. If you've given somebody a fair shot, you've given them all the training, all the help, all the coaching, and you still feel the need to manage them, you've probably made a hiring mistake. And that comes directly from Jim Collins with his Good to Great work, but I really believe it. And so do have coaching and one-on-ones and all of that structure, but if you're managing someone, make a change. Stop trying to solve people challenges with process changes. So often we think, well, we'll just change our policy, when really what we need to have is an accountability conversation with one person on the team that's not upholding something. We don't need a policy for everyone. We need a conversation. Stop worrying. There's nothing we can do. So I wish I could get back all the energy I've spent worrying and expecting someone else to come to our rescue or to recognize our achievements. So what's one thing you need to stop doing to drive momentum in your life? Or maybe you need to, it could be personal or professional. What's one thing you need to stop? Jot it down. And what do we need to continue? These are things that are on track. I say show up authentically and courageously. These are mine. Express gratitude. Savor my and my team's accomplishments. I also like to celebrate failures. Embrace the power of and. I think a lot of things can coexist, and we try to say that they're binary decisions. And work my plan. I believe in my plan. I kind of believe I'm the tortoise. I kind of believe that's healthier for me. So what is one thing you need to continue? And while you're thinking about your start, stop, and continue, I'm going to post this in chat, and I'm going to ask for the breakout rooms to be activated, and you're going to get a pop-up that asks you to go to the breakout room. So what I want you to do is I want you to spend let's do 9 minutes, and I want you to quickly share your one start, your one stop, and your one continue. And then if you have some time left over, there are a couple of other things you can draw on for inspiration. So let me put that in the chat. You guys have the breakouts ready? I can do it. Okay, hold on. 1, 2, 3,
Got it.
4.
We're all set.
Okay, let's go. You should get an invite.
Callie and Susan, are you able to reach your breakout room?
And Beth, I see here. They may have just stepped away from their desk.
Alrighty.
So Melissa, I'm sorry, what time would you like me to close the room to bring them back? Oh, she hopped out again.
I think she said 9 minutes or something like that.
Right, she did say 9 minutes, so I don't know. 12:58. I'll message her because I think she's just hopping back and forth.
You need me?
I just, what time do you want me to close the rooms? Because that'll give them 1 minute.
Do you, is 5 minutes enough for your thank you and rethinking the sponsors?
Yeah, that should be fine.
Okay, then I would say, why don't we close them at 12? I really would love to, I know I'm short on time. I would really love the full group to come back and share just a couple of, just a couple of the groups to share.
Mm-hmm.
Do you need the full 5 minutes? And that's okay if you do, I can modify.
Probably not the full 5. Let me just reach out to Priscilla.
Well, what I was going to say is we could close the breakouts at
breakout room.
If you close the breakouts at 12:53, yep, 12:54, and then I could just do 2 minutes of sharing. That would leave you 4 minutes.
Okay, we'll do that.
Okay,
thank you.
Thank you. And I will message the groups to let them know. So I just sent a 2-minute notice to the breakout groups.
Melissa, I really liked that Ziegler's Wheel of Life you shared.
Oh, thank you. I use it a lot in a work-life balance presentation. It can be a whole half-day workshop, actually. It's like all of this stuff could be.
I feel like my work and career pie is like 3/4 of a slice of my whole pie.
Well, that's how I got myself out of, I was clinically burnt out and I realized the same thing. And when I started trying to pay attention to more areas, I wasn't as dissatisfied at work. It's like work became what work was, but it didn't define me. And I had to take, like I took an art class and I just did a few small things and it changed my life.
A little bit of diversity and experience.
We don't know how much we need to fuel the human part of us, the other human parts of us.
I also was thinking of taking some snapshots of the Zoom for social media. Are you comfortable with me doing that?
Oh yeah, sure. Great. Okay, you're back. So number one facilitation tool, don't follow my rule. Give people much more time. But individual think time, small group, large group sharing, one question at a time, simple frameworks, and you will get more engagement. So just real quick, we only have 2 minutes. Is somebody willing to share a couple of things that came out of your group? Anybody, a couple of things that if we start, stop, continue, just toss something out for us.
Okay, one of the things, I'm Mary Lou, to continue is to keep remembering I have options that I can say no to things, because the tendency, and I shared this with my partner who is on the call, is just saying yes to things and just saying you can say no and you have options. There's no one way to do something. Amen.
Liz, you had something?
Our group had a great chat. Becky and Gloria and I met. We all offered our information. Getting more sleep is a priority, more personal time, continuing to express gratitude and connecting more effectively with others were part of the group list.
Great. Can I get one more person to share?
How about focus? That was one of the things, at least in our group, we talked about focus and stopping the belief that we cannot do. So those two were there, and one was to have a correct mindset.
I love those. I love those. Well, I am at time. What I will offer to anyone is I will stay around for questions. I am someone who has been clinically burnout, recovered from it, excited about the future, paying attention to a lot of different things. And so if it's a leadership question, an organizational culture question, I'm happy to talk about it, and I'll stick around for a few minutes. And I will turn things back over to Priscilla.
Sorry, I couldn't get my mouse over to unmute me. I was going crazy. Wow, Melissa, that was just awesome. We can't thank you enough. I think that was a definite thing I needed today. And I don't know, and I love the breakout rooms. I just love that. You're an exceptional speaker. We've been so lucky to have you today. And I know that everybody here agrees. So thank you very much. Thank you, Michelle, our wizard behind the scenes, again, for all you've done. Alec and Laura, thank you for that. Our final event, our fourth event, I can't even believe I'm saying this out loud, is coming up November 17th, and it's all about diversity and inclusion. And we're looking forward to a great event with Yetta Stansel. And so I want to say all again, thank you for coming to the Women's Business Council. We hope you'll come back. in November. Bring a bunch of friends and obviously support our sponsors as well. But now I'm going to turn it back to Gloria Williams, our sponsorship chair, to just give a final shout out to our sponsors. Gloria?
Okay, I will. Thank you, Priscilla. Thank you, Liz, and thank you, Melissa. Great presentation. And thank you to our sponsors, Allen Wayne Design Studio, Appleton Campbell, Ashwell and Ashwell, Atlantic Union Bank, Be the Change Foundation, Blazer Physical Therapy, Carmen Rivera State Farm Insurance, Country Chevrolet, Discovery Publications, Fauquier Health, Fauquier Times, Genesis Home Improvement, Golden Rule Builders, Gulick, Carson and Thorpe, Home Sweet Home Improvements, Huddle and Associates, Inside Nova, Jewel Technical Consulting, Lisa Burnside with Truist Bank, Marianne Clyde with Business Your Way, Mark B. Williams and Associates, Marshall Consulting Group, Meridian Financial Partners, Blue Sky Phoenix, Mountain View Marketing, Nancy D. Green Esquire, Novec, Piedmont Fine Properties, Sherry Goodwin with Jager 2, Smith Midland, Spaces Organized and Styled, Tuesday Lead Share, Updegrove, McDaniel, McMullen, and Chiquetto, UVA Community Credit Union, and Warrenton Auto. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Gloria. Thank you all. We hope to see you in November. Anyone feel to reach out to me if you have or know of a great speaker. We'll be starting to plan for next year as well. Melissa, big kiss to you. We loved having you.
Thank you.
Everybody have a fantastic day. We'll see you soon.
And I'm here if you need anything. I'm staying around for a minute or two.
Okay, good. Thank you, Melissa.